Skill 3 is all about zippers. We are going to do 2 zipper samples for Skill 3. One is a center zipper and the other is an invisible zipper. Here's what you're going to need to get started. You need 4 swatches of fabric that are 5 by 13. I want you to serge one long edge of each of them and press them nicely. You're also going to need an invisible zipper and a center zipper. I will supply those to you. You'll probably also want your thread snips, a marking tool, and possibly a ruler, and then your invisible zipper presser foot. Let's get started. We're going to start with a center zipper. I forgot to also tell you, you may want a pin for this, but use pins if you need along the way sewing. So you're going to take 2 of your swatches. One long edge of each should be serged. I want you to put them right sides together with the serging aligned. This zipper is your center zipper. It's the one where you can see the zipper teeth and the zipper pull on the front side, and then it's kind of blank on the back, okay? So your center zipper, what I want you to do is lay it on your fabric swatches. I want the top edge of the zipper tape aligned with the top of your swatches, and I want you to place a pin about 1/4 of an inch below this zipper stop. The zipper stop is the little metal tab right there. So I want you to go about 1/4 of an inch below that, and you are going to pin through your swatches. And I go all the way down through both and then back up through both. There we go. Let's head over to our machine. To sew these 2 swatches together, we're going to use a 5/8 inch seam allowance. What I want us to do is I want it to be basted where the zipper is going to go, and then just a plain seam below that. So what we're going to do is we're going to back stitch. We're going to turn our stitch length up to 5 for basting, back stitch, sew down to the pin. We're going to stop with our needle down in the fabric. We're going to turn our stitch length back down to 2.5, and then we're going to stitch the rest of the way and back stitch. So it'll be back stitching, basting, back stitching, plain seam, back stitching. All right, let's do this. All the way up to 5, back stitch. Now, if you need to stop with the needle, you get to your pin and the needle is not down in the fabric, just use your hand wheel over here to get it down there, okay? To walk it down there. You're going to turn your stitch length down to 2.5, back stitch a few stitches. And plain seam the rest of the way. Make sure you back stitch at the end. Needle up, project out. Now please go press your seams open and then meet me back here and I'll show you what to do next. Should have that pressed open nicely, and you'll see that you should have back stitch, basting, back stitch here in the middle, plain seam, and then back stitching at the end. Make sure your basting section is here on top. What we're going to do next is mark a guideline on either side of this basted seam 1/4 of an inch. So you can take your ruler, line up the 1/4 inch line on your ruler with the seam line. Give yourself a mark on either side. If you're doing this for a garment, you definitely want a tailor's pencil or something that will wash out later. Now, I got both my marks on either side of my seam. I'm going to lay my zipper down next to it, and I want to make a mark across the bottom that is 1/4 inch below that zipper stop. So now you should have this 3-sided box, like kind of a visual guideline for yourself around your basted seam. I want you to flip your project over, make sure the basted part is still up at the top, and you're probably going to want a few extra pins right now. I want you to take your zipper and place it face down on your seam allowances. Now with the top edge of the zipper tape aligned with the top of your swatches, I want you to pin your zipper so that it is centered right under your seam, okay? So you can kind of roll it up, make sure it's centered, and then pin it in place. You can put your pins parallel to the zipper tape and the zipper teeth, or you can place your pins across, either way, whichever works best for you. Your zipper presser foot for your machine, so get that out. You can use either the left or the right one, whichever works best for you, but get that out and meet me over at the machine. So before we can sew this, we need to put our zipper presser foot on our machine, and this just helps allow space for our zipper to ride alongside the presser foot. So push this screw in really hard and release the presser foot. And then to put your new one on, push that again, slip it up under that screw, and it should pop right in place. So ultimately what I want to do is just baste this zipper in place. So I'm going to have my stitch length turned up to 5. And so I'm using the zipper foot where it is on the left side of the needle. My needle's kind of on the right. I want my zipper to ride on the right side so I can get my stitching up close to my zipper. Again, we're doing basting. This doesn't have to be perfect. We're taking it out later. So just baste on both sides of your zipper tape. Once I reach the end, I'm going to put my needle down in my fabric. I'm going to lift my presser foot up and pivot across the bottom so I can get to the other side of the zipper tape. Again, needle down, presser foot up, pivot, and then I can baste up this side of my zipper. The next step we need to do is actually stitch our zipper on. So we're going to turn our stitch length dial back down to 2.5. And now I've turned my project over, so I'm looking at the right side. I can't see the zipper, but I can see my basting and my guidelines. I've also changed the color of my thread. I don't really care about the color of your thread for these skill samples, but I've changed it so that it'll be different than what I did for my basting. So it'll be easier for me to take my basting out later. And it'll also be easier for you to see the difference. So what I'm going to do from the right side, I am going to put my project underneath, and I'm wanting to stitch right on that 3-sided box that I made earlier on my project. Again, we're down at 2.5 stitch length. I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and just go slow so that I am stitching on my guideline. The basting will help keep everything in place and not shift around. Once I get to this bottom corner, I want to stop and put my needle down in my fabric right on the corner of that guideline. So you want to stop and feel and make sure that your zipper stop is not in the way. If your needle sews over that, you will break a needle. So I put my needle down, lifted my presser foot up. I'm going to pivot and stitch across the bottom of that box. And again, put my needle down so it's right in the corner of that guideline. Presser foot up, pivot, presser foot down, and I'm going to stitch up this side of my zipper. Want to make sure to back stitch at the end. Our next step is to remove all of our basting stitches. Not only the basting stitches we did to hold the zipper in place, but also the basting stitches we did at the top of the seam. All right, so I've got my seam ripper here. My top stitching that I did to hold my zipper on is done in red, which matches my guidelines, so you can't really see it. But my basting was done in green, so I'm gonna show you how I remove basting stitches. Essentially, you take this pokey part of your seam ripper, slide it up under a stitch, and pull it through. There's a blade right here at the crook of those 2 points, and you just keep doing that. Basting stitches are far easier to get out than other stitches, so if you think you will be removing a stitch later on, make sure you're basting it. So go around and remove all of that. You should have all of your basting stitches removed that are visible from the right side, and you should be left with just your top stitching. Now, to remove the basting that is within this seam, I want to take and just slide my seam ripper in and just kind of open up a few stitches, okay? The next trick I have is, see this side of your seam ripper that has this red wax kind of thing on it? I want you to slide that under your seam and then just gently glide that all along the seam. You gotta be careful not to rip the fabric, but that is a quick way to get a seam opened up. And then come this way, all the way down to where your back stitching starts. Once you've gotten all of your basting thread taken out around and you've opened up your seam, I need you to clean up all these little thread tails within the seam. I hate thread tails. If you have thread tails hanging around on your project, it is not finished, okay? So take all those out. Once you've given this a good press, you're good to go. Your center zipper sample is complete. You want to make sure that your zipper is functional and that it is centered under your seam. I'm checking that your top stitching is nice and smooth and a consistent distance from the seam. On the back, I'm making sure that you definitely caught the zipper and it's nicely centered and nice, smooth, and clean. Good job. Let's go on to our invisible zipper. Let's sew our invisible zipper sample. First thing we need to do is add our invisible zipper foot to our machine. So this is what the invisible zipper foot looks like. It's kind of blocky, and if you look at the bottom side of it, you'll notice that it has these two sort of tunnels, so to say. That's what I call them. I'm calling them these two tunnels. So put that on your machine. What I want you to do next is take your top thread tail and put it through the hole on the presser foot so that you can sweep your two thread tails to the back and out of the way. This will prevent you from kind of getting tangles at the beginning of your zipper. Here's our invisible zipper. The front side is really smooth and clean, almost looks invisible, so to say. And the back side is where you'll see the zipper teeth. So anytime we're sewing an invisible zipper, unlike other zippers, we always have it unzipped as we're stitching it, okay? So put your zipper face down on the bed of your machine, and I want you to notice that you can kind of unroll these rows of teeth, okay? They kind of roll back, and what we are wanting to do is get those unrolled, placed in the tunnel under our presser foot, and that's how we get the stitching really, really close to the teeth, okay? So let me walk you through this. I want you to just take one of your swatches. I want the serging to be on the right-hand side, and I want you to take your zipper and lay it face down, unzipped on your swatch. You're gonna take this zipper leg that's on the right side, and you're gonna scooch it over to your serging, okay? I want the top edge of the zipper tape aligned with the top edge of the swatch. We still want our default 5/8 inch seam allowance. So how we're gonna do that is I want you to look at your serging here, and I want you to notice this middle stitch line, this thread that goes down the middle of your serging. Do you see that? Just that thread that goes down the middle of your serging. I want you to line up the edge of your zipper tape with that middle line, that middle thread line on your serging, okay? You can pin this in place if you need, but once we get it under the presser foot, it kind of stays nicely in alignment. So lift up your presser foot. I want you to take and put your fingers on the tape to kind of stabilize it on either side of the presser foot, and use your other two fingers to sort of unroll those teeth. Now, when you lower the presser foot down, I want that row of teeth unrolled to get set into that tunnel on the left-hand side, okay? So make sure your teeth are unrolled, put them in the left tunnel, and then what we're gonna do, it's okay that I'm not even near the start of my zipper, because what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna back stitch all the way to the beginning. You also wanna make sure that your zipper tape is still in alignment with that stitch line that goes down the middle of your serging, okay? So I'm gonna back stitch all the way to the beginning. And by starting a little ways in, this helps me see, are the teeth actually unrolling as they go into the presser foot? So I want you to just stitch all the way down. Again, we're doing a plain seam in a sense where we're back stitching at the beginning, back stitching at the end. We're just doing it with a different presser foot and with a zipper involved. Now what's gonna happen is you're gonna stitch all the way to the end. Your presser foot is gonna hit the zipper pull. When that happens, you're gonna reverse. Needle up, project out, clip your threads. You'll know you got your zipper installed correctly by looking at the front side, and you'll notice you cannot see your stitching unless you unroll that row, that zipper teeth, and then you'll see your row of stitching, okay? Let's move on to the second side. Now we're ready to stitch this second side of our zipper onto our second swatch. So here's how I want you to orient it. Make sure the serging is on the left-hand side. Right side of the fabric is facing up. We're gonna take this leg of our zipper, kind of fold that out of the way, and bring it over to the serging on this swatch. And align it the same way. I want to see that the top edge of it is aligned, the top edge of the tape is aligned with the top of the swatch, and the edge of the zipper tape is aligned with that stitch line going down the center of the serging. Same thing, I want you to take your pointer finger and your middle finger and kind of stabilize the first few inches of the zipper tape. Just make sure it's aligned how you want it and it's in place. I want you to take and put them under your presser foot, and you are going to take these fingers and unroll the teeth so you can get the teeth set into the tunnel that's on the right-hand side. The teeth are on the right, so we're setting them into the right-hand tunnel. I am going to start by back stitching. And it's really just a plain seam from here. We're back stitching at the beginning, stitching down the length of the zipper tape, and then back stitching at the end. You're gonna stitch until your presser foot hits the zipper stop, and then you'll reverse. Again, you'll know that you did a good job if you cannot see your stitching from this side, but you can see it when you unroll those teeth, okay? And it should look nice and consistent and even from the back side. So zip your zipper up. I know it looks kind of funky right now. Zip your zipper up. And it should look more or less invisible. I know we haven't pressed it yet, so it's not great, but it should look more or less invisible. The next thing we need to do is finish the seam below the zipper. I want you to get your zipper foot. I'm gonna use the one that has the foot on the left and the needle hole on the right. And I'm gonna put that on my machine. I want you to take your swatch and fold it so your fabric swatches are right sides together, okay? And bring your swatches so that they are aligned on this serged edge. Pull the zipper tape out so it's not getting stuck. It's not gonna get stuck in that seam. What we need to do is we need to start up here, kind of where our stitching stops for our zipper. We need to get as close as we can to that. Reverse, stitch an even 5/8 inch seam allowance all the way down, and then reverse at the end. Again, this is another plain seam. We just have to deal with the zipper being kind of in the way. So the zipper is gonna be off to the right of our presser foot. That's why we want the presser foot on the left, so it allows room for our zipper to be over on the right. And our needle is on the right hand side, so hopefully you can get it as close to the zipper and the stitching for it as possible without actually stitching on it. So again, make sure your fabric swatches are right sides together and you pull the end of your zipper kind of out of the way. I want you to push those down and flatten them as much as possible. And definitely, again, make sure your zipper tail is out of the way. I want to get my project put under my presser foot so that I'm pretty much aligned with the 5/8 inch seam allowance. And my stitching is going to kind of overlap the stitching that I did for my zipper. We just want there to be a little bit of an overlap so that there's not a hole in our garment. I am going to start by reversing a few stitches. And I want to stop and make sure that I'm as close as I can be to that zipper stitching. I am going to continue stitching down my swatch with an even, consistent seam allowance. And I'm going to reverse at the end. This is what it should look like once you're finished. You'll notice that there's about 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch between my stitch lines. That's as close as we can get with these presser feet that we have. But you'll notice that my stitchings overlap for about 1/2 an inch, and that'll prevent me from having a hole there. So what I want you to do is go to your ironing board and press this. So you open this up and press this open and press so these seam allowances are open as well. And then meet me back here. Here's our zipper once it's pressed. I hope you see that it just looks so much better and cleaner once we press it. The back side, you'll notice that I pressed my seam allowances open as well. The last thing we need to do here is we have this kind of tail on our zipper. When we make garments, we always want to think about the user experience, and this can be kind of like a sensory issue for a lot of people. So I want us to tack the lower edges of our zipper tape to our seam allowances, but I don't want the stitching to be visible on the right side of the garment. So I want you to take one side of your zipper tail and grab the corresponding seam allowance and just get those two so they're all on their own. And you flipped this part of the swatch out of the way, okay? So you just have your zipper tail and your seam allowance. I want you to take that and put it on your machine. It would be great if you still have the zipper foot on here. And I am just going to go forward a few stitches and then backward, somewhere along the zipper tape there. And you should notice that it is nicely tacked down now. Once you do the same thing on this side, grab your zipper tape and your seam allowance, get your swatch out of the way so you're just holding the zipper tape and the seam allowance. And you're just going to stitch a few stitches forward, a few stitches in reverse, kind of in the middle of that zipper tape, just to help stabilize it and hold it. So that is what you should have once you've tacked the lower edge of your zipper tape to your seam allowance. And you'll notice it doesn't flap up anymore. It's really stuck down. And you definitely cannot see it from the front side. You're now done with skill 3. Make sure you fill out a backing paper for your center zipper and your invisible zipper, and you can turn them in. You will need this invisible zipper skill sample for skill number 4. We're going to kind of add to it. So make sure you keep it if I hand it back to you after grading.